That is one of my biggest regrets. I don't have a formal education at all. I do my own therapy work.
How did you even get into the music scene?
I was shit at school. I forgot I had just failed 10 minutes ago. I might chill.
So from music, you went into other projects where you were writing and producing.
Worst financial investment of my life. I shot my poor teacher with a big rubber band.
Why?
I have nightmares about that place.
What was the end goal for you when you started out?
It sounds like it belongs to the she word, what I'm about to say. It wasn't entirely altruistic, that.
Would you say that the Jon Mallia Podcast is the best in Malta?
I felt like a huge failure. When then you go to the journalism awards and you're not even a fucking journalist and you win the most awards on the night, do you realize it's our taxes that pay for his wage?
So we welcome Mr. Jon Mallia to the ZIGZAG Pod.
You're making me feel old already.
John, how does it feel to be on the other side of the table today?
Very terribly odd. So before the conversation started, I asked for a pen and paper, as if I'm the one doing the interview. I'm trying to fool myself into thinking I'm in control right now, which is, I think, if you extrapolate to life, I think we all do that. Right now I'm content to jump into the chaos with you. But yeah, some trepidation, some anxiety, I want to make this good for you and your team here. You guys seem like you've been working hard, and I don't want to cock it up.
John, let's hop into it then. So
let's go.
Usually when we have guests on ZIGZAG Pod, we start out by introducing them. We give them this label, something that most people associate them with. Mm-hmm. But you've done 1,000,001 things in your career.
Yeah.
Moving from music to film to producing to hosting to having your own podcast. Mm-hmm. So what label would you give yourself before I give you any?
I think I like adventure. I like adventures in my mind. I'm a creative person. I like to really pursue ideas.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to describe it because whether that's to do with, let's say, small business or whether that's hip hop. Like one thing, for example, you didn't mention over there was I used to organize events. So, for example, I used to organize Listrina for 3 years in a row. People don't really know this about me. This mixja tal-president that Listrina does. That was my invention. My colleagues. People don't really know. It used to be called il-Listrina xparata. And that only occurred because we got tired of being in the office with our boring team that we were kind of ascribed. Ascribed is the team that was in the office with us. I think we had fallen out with them and we didn't really want to hang out with them. They're nice enough. They're nice people, but that's what happens when you work a lot under pressure and you're there for like 16 hours a day. You just want to leave. So we thought, how the hell are we going to get out of this office? And we concluded, we'll just do a parade. Like, why would we do a parade? Mush for Listrina, we'll do the parade for Listrina. And originally, I think you can probably Google it. Originally, it was like we just invited everyone and anyone. So we had like a defile of vintage cars. We had the Boy Scouts. We had like these group of Father Christmases that had a band, and like just thousands of people turned up, and it was born. And then from there on in, the next year when we didn't do it anymore because we fell out with the organization, it's not important anyway. They turned it into il-mixja tal-president or something like that. But yeah, it lives on. What I'm saying is that I'm the type of person that will get an idea and try it. Yeah, mainly that.
Okay, so John, as a pursuer of ideas, nowadays society has tried to, is trying to confine people to potentially pursuing one career and continuing along that line. So we grow up thinking that we're going to start a job or we're going to enter the workforce. This is what's made for us, and we're going to continue growing up in a certain industry, perhaps, yes?
Yeah, okay,
So how would you say that you balance these various aspects of John, these different public personas and your different projects together?
I think I think now that I'm fairly old, I have some experience. I know what I'm good at. I know what I suck at. I know what weaknesses I have and the type of people that I need around me in order to make certain ideas happen. I know what ideas are probably out of reach for me It may be perhaps a bit too ambitious and will result in most likely disaster. I think it's a lot about, it's just knowing yourself, knowing your skills, knowing your network, knowing what you want to do, right? So, you mentioned a bunch of stuff that I've done, but so as of recent, maybe about 3-4 years ago, when me and Mark started the podcast and some other friends, about 4 months before, I sat down to write an essay to myself. Essay is about 8,000 words long or something like that, determining what kind of future I want. So this was before we had the podcast, before I had the company, before I started doing all the creative things, Kazin and all that. And I determined, in asking myself questions and then answering them, I determined that I wanted, to have, first and foremost, the admiration of my children. I wanted my kids to look up to me. So I knew I had to hang on to, my values, my dignity, and to also foster my talents. Because if I don't foster my talents, and this is what happens, I think, to many people that unfortunately I know, is that they don't foster their talents and they become resentful. Because they didn't really try, knowing full well that they had the potential to do that. So I wanted to make sure that I don't end up there. Actually, to really maximize the potential of my talents where I could, and then I wanted to also educate myself because I don't have a formal education at all. I don't think I have a school leaving certificate. I don't think they even bothered to give me that, and I don't blame them. So I wanted to find a way to educate myself, but I knew I couldn't, I was still am in no financial situation to just I stop working and just get an education. Wasn't possible. So and I also wanted to do something in media, and I also wanted to do something that exploits the skills that I have in terms of language and in terms of telling a story, in terms of communication and all of that, and I called it. It's going to sound corny as hell, but I'll share this with you. And I called it the Joe Rogan. But Joe Rogan was in there. The Joe Stephen Fry Rogan life. So my two heroes combined into one. Although Joe's really pissed me off recently, but that's for another time. So Joe Rogan is obviously the podcaster. Again, a guy who's done a lot. Right, so he's done movies, stand-up, he's done TV, he's done podcasts, he presents the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So he's done a lot. Extreme, whatever anyone says about Joe Rogan, and he does make mistakes, but he's done 2,000 episodes. He's an extremely intelligent, creative person. The other person is Stephen Fry. You familiar with Stephen Fry?
No.
Okay, so you really need to get at least a small glimpse into Stephen Fry's life. Another guy. So Stephen Fry started out becoming very popular in the 70s, or let's say late 70s. He had a show called A Bit of Fry and Laurie, which was a sketch show, super hilarious comedy writing, that's pure genius, right? And then he starred in the Blackadder series with Rowan Atkinson. He would turn up in different characters across the seasons.
Okay.
Phenomenal acting, over the top. His acting in that was over the top and very caricaturesque, I would say. But at the same time, then he was doing the biopics of Oscar Wilde, for example, who's another hero of mine, and it was really a powerful story. If you don't know of Oscar Wilde, of this phenomenal, intelligent father who's actually homosexual, and he was persecuted because of his homosexuality, and it's a heartbreaking story. And you see how a system crushed a person who was just absolutely an immense contribution to literature, and Stephen Fry did it fantastically. So, and what's also cool about Stephen Fry is that. So Stephen Fry is also himself gay, but it took a while for him to say that he was gay. So he had a lot of struggles growing up mentally. I do know that Stephen Fry wound up in prison at a very young age at some point. And if you see him and you hear him talk, you would never tell that he's the type of person that would wind up in prison, because he's very British, very stiff upper lip, very eloquent, very gentleman-like. But I've never found out why he wound up in prison. So if anyone's listening to this and they know and they want to share it with me, I'm all ears. And then the cool thing about him is that he goes to Oxford, he applies for Oxford. And Oxford, obviously, like, they're saying how intelligent this guy is, IQ, that's beyond, just the furthest upper range of human intellect. And they ask, do you have any trouble? Have you ever had any trouble? No, and he lies, right? Because he wants to get into Oxford. And that lie actually gets him to the school that he wants to get into. And then eventually he grows very close to his tutor, and he confesses to him. He takes him, they go for this beer, but they now have become kind of there's also almost a paternal, filial relationship between them. And he confesses to him, and the person keeps the secret until Stephen graduates. So this kind of, he was not only incredibly eloquent, but also incredibly adventurous and incredibly honest in the end. And I think all of those traits are kind of extremely aspirational. Why did we start with this conversation? This part of this conversation? Where did we start from?
So I asked about your public personas.
Yes, so I'm obviously very influenced by that. Yeah, all of those things that I've said, I think.
Okay, and would you say that your multiple public personas clash with your private one?
No. So that's a great deal of the work that I've done, either by myself. When I do my own therapy work, I do therapy work for myself. But I also have been to various therapists over time. The most important work that anyone, I feel, I'm not prescribing this, actually, the most important work I have done is to work on a process called individuation. Different schools of thought have different names for it. So individuation is the label that was given to it by Carl Gustav Jung. And it's basically to know yourself inside out, right? You have various dimensions of your psyche, starting from, the persona, and then the ego, shadow, collective unconscious, animus, and that's a lot of work. And it takes years to go through that process and really harness what all of those dimensions are and how they integrate with one another. I'm not done by any way, but there is very little variation between meeting me now and meeting me at my dinner table and meeting me, except when I'm drunk, I'm a bit different. I'm just a bit more reckless, I guess. Because by nature I'm quite chaotic. And perhaps
John times 5, John times 7, potentially.
Yeah. The volume goes way up. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, John, what I find really interesting about your career is that people who see you now might not know unless they delve into your career or they actually look how you started out in the public eye. Yeah. They might not know that you actually started in hip-hop, rap, and the music scene. And you actually one of the first to put Maltese rap out there.
Yeah.
And you had said that was something super important to you, changing that perception and working in the hip-hop scene using Maltese. What was that like back then, and how did you even get into the music scene?
So how I got into the music scene was, I would say, it's probably at the back of the school bus in Stella Maris. I think that's how this thing started. Funny kind of coincidence is that the first thing that I was known to perform was "We Will Rock You" by Queen. Just like this massive stadium anthem, boom, boom, cha. And kind of like every bus ride anywhere we go with the class would, invariably, I'd walk to the back of the bus. As I'm walking to the back of the bus, the rest of the students are now going. and then it starts. And that kind of cemented my persona as a performer. And then I thought, I started adding little things to my repertoire. So there was this rap. That's not my rap, but it was like very popular because I had British neighbors, and I think they imported it from their school. To be honest, I pretended it was mine. It wasn't mine. And I used to go, on top of the school bench, you're covered with sand. You know this one?
No.
I shot my poor teacher with a big rubber band. I shot her with pleasure. I shot her with pride. I couldn't have missed her. She was 40 foot wide. I went to her funeral. Anyway, and then it goes on. It was just like an assault on a teacher, which to us was hilarious. Today, probably I'd get cancelled, I think.
Most likely.
Yeah, because I call her, fat, useless, slow, lethargic. I mean, the amount of stuff that we insulted this fictitious teacher with. So anyway, I started adding little numbers to my repertoire. Then I joined the Cub Scouts for all the wrong reasons, but I joined anyway. And the part that used to excite me was bonfire night, get to perform. So then I started writing sketches as well, and it kind of gave me an identity because I was shit at school. I was really terrible at paying attention. I was really terrible at focus. So at least the little self-esteem I could get, I got it from being a performer. Then eventually, my friend, I'm sure I'm skipping beats, but the next thing that I remember, because you dug way deeper than my memory can go. Was being we had a small band, like a rap group. So it was myself, a guy called David Schwierep, Damien Falson, and I think when we were around like 12, 13, we went to the first studio. What's your name, kid? I don't give a shit. Let me break it down, son, and produce another hit. So we used to think we were from the Bronx, but we were like from San Paul to Tarjan, Mostan. I wasn't from San Paul to Tarjan. I was never for San Paul to Tarjan, but some of my friends were. And that gave like a lot of drive and a lot of collegiality. And when you're a young male, you want like this fraternal bond. Obviously, you want to stand out. Girls involved, You want girls to, he raps. That's cool. Or, he raps. What's wrong with him? Either way, at least, you're getting noticed. And what you don't realize is that over time, in order to be a good lyricist, you have to be good at language. So you're spending literally tens, if not hundreds of hours just writing and writing and writing. And then the group, I remember there was a point where the group got like insane big, like it was 15 of us, but none of them could write. So I just like sit down on my kitchen table and like they'd sit across from me and I would be like, okay, so what do you want to write? Like, what do you want to rap about? And like we'd write it together. And then I took that skill of helping these guys, and then I give them the rap, and then they go and do it, and I help them like timing and all of that. So there, I'm realizing now I'm developing the skill of directing people. That I then took. We continued. Creating, so we had IQ, and then we did Sixth Symphony, which was a rap band with Dave Leguess. You know Dave Leguess?
No.
Fantastic human being. So David Leguess, Simon Vell, and a few other guys, which was kind of like me and Dave rapping, and then a bunch of other guys with string instruments. I used to have violins. We had like 2-3 songs with the National Orchestra. But after 2 years of recording this album, which, by the way, I mean, we went to Ibiza to record this, went to London to record this, Paris, because we were picked up by this British producer who's like very connected. But then it got crazy in the end because, as I said, like, I'm capable of chaos. And it all fell apart. It wasn't entirely my fault. We were just like all capable of chaos, and it just
There was a
volcanoed.
fallout, no?
Yeah, that's one way of saying it.
Okay, so what actually happened?
No, we stick to fallout. And, but it never materialized. So maybe at the end of this podcast, maybe we can play one of those songs. Because it was actually, like, some of those songs were good. They sound a bit dated now, because we're talking, like, maybe like 17 years ago or something. But they never made the light of day, which was kind of sad because we put a lot of work into it. In fact, I got very depressed after. I got very fat. Got really fat after. Like, I didn't want to leave the house. I just wanted to, like, because there were so many people had put so much hope in what I was doing and what my team was doing, to then turn to them and say, listen, because I still blame myself, by the way.
Why?
Because I think it was poor leadership from my part. Like, I didn't fully embody the leadership role.
And were you seen as the leader in that group?
Well, now that I talk to the people that were in it, yeah. And but I came from a very peculiar background. Tash, this is so complicated and psychologically exercising what's happening now. So I came from a very peculiar background where there was like no hierarchy in the household. Very egalitarian.
Okay.
So it was like the whole household was like, we believed in like flat hierarchies in my house. And so it was very difficult for me, and it's still not in my nature to tell people what to do. I'm really not good at that. But today I know that if I'm leading, I have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, or otherwise I'm letting those people down. So that's how I get myself to be an asshole sometimes. Because I know that if I don't put my foot down now, then those people that have entrusted me, even if I'm going to be difficult with them, in the short term, in the mid and long term, is going to be better. The outcome for them is going to be better as well. But I didn't think of that like that at the time, so I let a lot of things slide. Then eventually, as always happened, if you let too many things slide, if you slide too many things under the carpet, that little mound of dust turns into Everest. And then you realize there's no way of getting through it, but with dynamite, and things just turn explosive. So, I tried now to uproot things as early as possible.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So you said that Sixth Symphony didn't really materialize.
No.
But then again, no Bling Show did.
Yeah.
So you were all of a sudden from this rap group that everyone was putting their hopes into, but didn't really turn out well. You went from not only writing lyrics and performing, but to directing and producing. So can you give us a bit of a rundown of how Lucia or Samuel was perceived back then, and what you guys did differently, how you incorporated your rapping, your writing, and your producing together?
So I'll just make a little caveat about Sixth Symphony out of respect for the people that were that came with me on that journey. Some of them I love deeply to this day. So when I say it just failed because it never made the light of day.
Yeah.
Because some of the music was actually cool, and we did gig around. So we played in different places. We played in Barcelona. We played in various clubs here. We played, and the gigs were also always fucking insane. Like, we're really good, which is even more heartbreaking. But then anyway, I was in deep depression, and I was just, when you're like just dazed the whole time, you're just dazed. Like, you really don't want to excite yourself, so you don't feel anything. And even if you wanted to excite yourself, you really couldn't. So I was just spending a lot of time between my bedroom and the fridge, and then maybe that was it. Like, bedroom, fridge, TV, bedroom, fridge, TV. It was like that. And then one night I woke up like 3 a.m. and I said, and like this, I had this impulse to go sit down on the computer, which was where I used to write. I never wrote on paper. I had a very specific way in which I put my lyrics together.
Okay.
So I sat down, switched it on, and as soon as it came on, I was just something. I don't think I had written almost anything in Maltese before, and just this line came to me: Lucia kienet studjuża kapaċi intellettwali. Ooh. And I saw her immediately, like that line. I could see who she was. I could see what her story was. I could see really like it. She was real. Way before the video. I knew exactly how this thing needed to go.
Okay.
And like in an hour, I wrote the whole first, maybe not an hour, maybe a bit more than an hour. But before I went back to sleep, for sure, I wrote the first 3 verses. Before the music switches.
Yeah.
All of that I wrote in the first sitting, and almost without like hardly any thinking.
Okay, so it literally just was flowing out
Yeah,
of you.
came through. Now there's a lot of theories about like 3 a.m. being the time. Like if you want to be esoteric about it, they say 3 a.m. is the time God talks to you. And then there's people that are sleep experts that will tell you like 3 a.m. is the time when you have the most whatever hormone in your brain that makes you dream. So if you wake up at 3 a.m., start writing, you're more creative. Then there's my little Luciferian conspiracy theory.
Okay, tell us.
Which is, oh my God, the stuff I'm saying. So there's a lot of like art out there. It has like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Lucia with Samuel. And there's another couple that don't come to me right now. But it's like anytime an artist puts something out there with Lucy, something, I would say positive happens. I'm not saying I'm Luciferian or Satanist or that disclaimer. But anytime that makes it into the title, or not anytime. You're not just gonna go and write rubbish. But yeah. So so anyway, all of those things happened, or all of those theories floating around my head as to why this thing got written. And as I said, I'd never written anything in Maltese, so I was like a bit skeptical. But I was very energized by it. So all of a sudden, snap! I'm out of depression, and woke up the next morning. Called Phil, who was in Sixth Symphony with me, and he had a computer, piece of shit computer, but it was a computer. We had it, and we went to the garage, and I think we recorded the first part, and we started working on it. And it was like, I'm excited again. Like I forgot I had just failed 10 minutes ago. Now I'm back to, thinking, let's have some great adventure. Remind me to tell you about sangria.
Okay.
Interesting little detour. So, but we don't have any money, right? Because I've just spent all my money, like the little money I had, on trying to make Sixth Symphony happen, and didn't have a job, and so I had zero income, no money, nothing. So I needed to figure out a way. By the way, by the next morning, I've decided that we're gonna drop an album by the end of summer. This is like April, and we're like, by July we'll drop an album.
So this was in the span of 24 hours that
Yeah. This is what I mean by I decide this is what's going to happen, and then I bend everything and everyone's schedule around it going to materialize. And to Phil's credit, he was all in. So 2 things happened. One, we moved into the garage.
Okay.
Garage didn't have a toilet, didn't have anything. It had a fridge, and it had a bucket, and it had a computer, and it had a microphone. That's all we needed. It had a little couch. The couch didn't have any legs, but legs are extra. Then we needed money. So the next thing I did was start to think of like how we're going to finance this, because you need to print 1,000 CDs, you need sleeves, you need all of these things. We didn't want to get paid. We just wanted to make the product. So then I went to Dark Dog at the time. So Dark Dog was like an energy drink company. I don't know if it's still around. And I think I had met the guy at some event at some point, and we had really hit it off. So I said, listen, can I come by your office? I need to talk to you about something. And he said, yes. And I really didn't know the song very well because I had just written it. So it wasn't like ingrained in my memory. So I took the paper with me. And I said, just sit down. I said, ready? Ready. So, hold on. Ready? Okay. All right. So, Lucia kienet studjuża kapaċi intellettwali which that... Wait, let me start again. Hold on. The guy doesn't know what the fuck is going on, right? So I do half the verse and go, Isma, and this album is going to be great. It's going to be great. I just need, I think I asked for 2,000 euros. I don't know. But The guy went, sure, I'll give you the money. And I think he gave me half of it in cash and half of it in Dark Dog energy drinks, which we really needed. Because now we're decided we're doing a 12-track album in 3 months, and we're printing it, and we're doing the T-shirt, and we're launching it, and we're doing the music video. So we needed a lot of Dark Dog. So there was a summer where everyone in Mosta was essentially walking around with a can of fucking Dark Dog, because we had hundreds of these things. And basically we had half the youth of Mosta basically working on this music video, which was beautiful. It's so beautiful when a community comes together. It doesn't give a shit about money. Doesn't care how much time it's. It doesn't care what time it is. Doesn't care that we've blocked the street away. Senora, don't worry about it. Like, we're shooting a video. Look how much fun we're having. You want to be in it? And the community just comes together. And honestly, I think I didn't cherish it enough at the time. It's only like now that I look back, I realize how special that sharing those moments with those people was. So anyway, then we shot the video. The video was, look, I would say there were 2 incredible minds behind the video.
Okay.
Premier is Jon Mallia, my sister. Just visually, this woman is I mean, if you see everything that Abigail's done, the video, Limestone Cowboy, Castello, her last film, every frame is a painting. Like, she thinks like that. It's just like the way she sees the world, you know? And then the person that brought that to life on set was Justin Farrugia. And so him and my sister used to discuss what the next scene is going to be, how it's going to cut from one to the other, and how, you know, at the time, like now with TikTok and stuff, smash cuts and match cuts, those are all kind of, everyone knows them now. But if you look at Lucia Samuel, that was, I don't know, 15 years ago or whatever, maybe even more. And you see like how they were using those techniques way before anyone else knew how to use them. Not anyone, I mean, of course, like Hollywood and stuff. Like the good artists in Hollywood knew how to use them. But my sister had just a natural aptitude. So anyway, we shoot the video. And all of Mosta gets behind it, which was beautiful, so beautiful, because I'm sounding like Trump. And because I remember to launch the video, we rented out Liquid Club.
Okay.
And we put it on the big screen, and like all of Mosta came in. It was so great. All of Mosta, like everyone's there. Just first we had a DJ playing. Everyone's getting everyone's. Like, big sense of camaraderie. Everyone, and then as soon as the video came off, like shirts off, everyone screaming, everyone just felt like they were, because the thing is that video told the story of an entire generation of lost kids that we had like gotten behind. We'd lost touch with the previous generation. We'd lost touch with our education. We'd lost touch with community, and we created our own community, and we were just heavily invested in this non-society. And everyone just felt represented by this video. It was great. And then there was moments, you know, where I remember one time I got on the bus in Birkirkara. I sit down next to a guy, and the guy is watching my video, and he does, you know, a double take. Now today that doesn't sound like anything, but at the time things didn't really go viral like that. So it was quite a unique thing. Yeah, so that's the story of no Bling Show, I guess, and Lucia Samuel, and then eventually got Lopez in there, because I one of the things that I always want to do is give to the next generation, give the opportunity to the next generation, which is why, for example, I rarely say yes to interviews, really rare. But when it's students doing it, when it's people that are the next generation coming in, I always do my utmost to clear out my schedule and be somewhat of a worthwhile contribution so far that I'm able to contribute to help to what you guys are trying to do. I feel that, I don't know why, I feel that obligation, and I think it's a good obligation to have.
Okay, Jon, any regrets in your music today?
Where do we start? In my music, so as I said, the leadership part, so musically the leadership part, I think also when it comes to my music, I never gave it the technical attention that it required.
Why not?
Because it came so easy. That's a problem. When things come to you, like I could just bust out into a rap at the age of like 14 without any rehearsal, like just improvising. And when you have that kind of natural ability, you get lazy. You get really lazy. And so I wish I took that natural ability and really honed in on the technique more. I think that is one regret, which I then learned from. Eventually I learned from that, and when it comes to my writing, now I'm both technical and, you know, there is a moment where you have to be kind of just letting your emotions speak and letting your sensibility speak. But there's times where you're asking, then you have to zoom out and ask, okay, on a technical level, does this work? Is there the setup and payoff? Is there, you know, is the structure working? Is the worst of the worst? Is it really the pits of hell, or is it like a bit weak? Is there enough tension, enough torque, and all of it? So I think that. So the lack of leadership in Sixth Symphony, I would say the lack of technique or commitment to technique in my lyricism. Yeah, I think does. Because then when I was ready to be done with music, which I don't think I am entirely, but there was a point where I said, okay, I definitely need to now quit music and do other things, was the point where I was midway through an album with a bunch of really cool, younger kids, mostly from jazz. My mom, and my wife told me she's pregnant. And first I fought it a bit, you know, and you know, as in I didn't fight the pregnancy. I was like, because I'm quite chill, I guess. Am I chill? I'm an observed variant of chill. But I was like, yeah, cool. We're having a kid. Okay, that's all right. What I thought was the idea that I'm gonna have to let go of things.
Okay, so maybe a bit of denial over there.
Yeah, denial that I'm gonna have to like give up certain things in my life.
Okay.
So I persisted with the album, and I persisted with, you know, with the rap training and all of that. But then when I was ready to be done, I'm like, you know, my kid's obviously more important than my hobby in this case. Plus, I used to get a lot of, I felt very satisfied with my work. I got a lot of gratification is word, not satisfaction. Gratification from all the things I was writing. I was writing a movie at the time. I was writing Kashaturi later. You know, I started the podcast with Mark. Still love the podcast so much. So I was still getting my artistic kick, you know, my creative kick. So yeah, I gave up the music, but that's not to say that like sometimes I'm not like sprinting on the treadmill and like rapping in my head and thinking I'm, I don't know, Joel Ortiz or something. So one day I'll be back, maybe.
So from music, you went into other projects where you were writing and producing. So you had projects like Limestone Cowboy,
Correct.
Jenny Wilder tapes,
Correct.
Never After. What were those like,
So,
working on them?
Yeah, so Limestone Cowboy was like the only feature film I've ever made. I think the feature film cost something like $300,000. Worst financial investment of my life. Look, I'm being harsh because I learned so much from making a feature film. Is really difficult, and it's really difficult when you see how much goes into it and how much little resource we had. So when foreign producers looked at Limestone Cowboy at the time, they thought it must have cost like somewhere in the region of 2-3 million, but it actually cost like 300-400. The rest you make up with your blood, sweat, sleep deprivation, tears, endless arguments inside the company, you know, at home because you have a very short fuse because you haven't slept in 3 days. But at the same time, you learn what it's like to work under stress. Like now, almost nothing can stress me out when it comes to work. And this frustrates sometimes my colleagues to no end, right? Because sometimes something they perceive as deeply unsettling will happen, and they'll come and they'll tell me, X happened. And I'm like, you sound anxious about it. You want to talk about it? Like, of course. And I go, no, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Just sit down. And most things are really not as they're really not as threatening to the project as most people perceive them to be, there's seldom any help or any advantage that comes from panic. I've heard a really interesting conversation between a Ukrainian journalist and Klitschko, who used to be the world boxing champion, heavyweight champion, one of the brothers Klitschko. And then the journalist is saying him, like, wow, man, you look like you're really excited. Like, yeah, I'm so excited, so excited. Like, it's like my heart's going through the roof. Like, I can't wait for the fight tomorrow. And it's like, what a thrill and whatever. And it's like, so will you be like this tomorrow? It's like, no. Tomorrow I'll be like a surgeon. Tomorrow my heart rate won't go up north of 65. And I think you need to get to that kind of soft, calm. There is an aggression to it, but it's somehow gentle. And at that beautiful place, I think that's where most of the best problem solving is made. And Limestone Cowboy taught me that there's no point in panicking. Like, you get to a point where you're like so sleep deprived and you haven't eaten, or you just eaten 16 Mars bars because there was a box of Mars bars. It's at the back of the truck and that's all you had. And I don't know, something crazy like at the point, and like I'm supposed to be on set, I take off my shirt because it was hot, and someone notices that there's a red line going from the tip of my finger all the way up my arm and all the way almost to my heart. What I later found out that was some crazy bug bit me, and somehow anyway this infection was making its way to my heart. So now I have to go to the pharmacy, try to persuade this guy to give me antibiotics, but I have to do this all in time because now the crane is coming and I have to take the crane to the 5th floor, and I'm the only one that can do it, and there's like 60 extras coming, and somehow it worked out. So if that worked out, like, okay, guest didn't turn up, I don't know, we'll shoot a podcast with Mark. I don't know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's and maybe we just won't shoot the podcast and it won't be the end of the world, and we'll figure out a way to make amends. By the way, another calm. You watched Leon the Professional?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Mark. That's why I like Mark and I like Weza, because they're also like deeply unaffected by any chaos ahead. That's cool. So yeah, Limestone Cowboy. Then look, Jenny Wilder Tapes is a series we're developing, and so is Never After. But those are still projects that are in development.
Okay.
So they're cool, they're fun. I do them with Abigail and Carlos da Batista. That's who I do my film series projects with. I trust them a lot. They're extremely skillful. If you haven't watched Castillo, guys, go and watch Castillo. I had nothing to do with it except for I helped with there's like a document in the beginning that you do that's kind of like, it's not a synopsis, I forgot what it's called. So I helped with that, but that's it. The rest is all them, and it's crazy good. It's so good. And I wish so many people go and watch that.
Nice. Jon, you're a busy man, yet you founded a couple NGOs, and there are some projects that you worked on just for the sake of helping people. So there was something like Man Up Malta. There was Hiphop Is Yours, where you actually went into hip-hop and rap for inmates. Yeah. There were projects like Breaking Limits. Yeah. You had educational theatre programs, Chatla, Street Smart. Why? And how do you balance all of these things with your own career when you're already so busy?
So this was, much of that is, I would say all of those things you've listed are previous to how busy I am today.
Okay.
And perhaps at the time I was a bit more reckless with my time, in the sense that I never thought that I needed any time for myself. I never needed downtime. Like the notion of taking a day off was just ridiculous to me. So yeah, when you're living like a freight train that just keeps chugging along all the time, you find time. Especially before kids. I mean, once you get kids, then you realize how valuable that time is. So that's my advice to younger people, is like, now, man, do it now. You want to learn the piano now. You want to learn how to dive now. You want to, like your brother, learn how to box now. All of those things you should do before you have bigger responsibilities, like home loans and employees and children and all of those things. I learned so much from that. Perhaps out of that list, my favorite 2 projects, I would say, are Breaking Limits, which I had done with Oliver Shikluna, which is basically taking the art of breakdance and using it for inclusion with disabled kids. That eventually developed into kind of like a short film project as well, where we used to teach kids with disabilities of various kinds how to write comedy, and we produced two short movies with them. One of them you can find online. The other one was too hilarious to make it to the public. Yeah, it got stopped at the gate, much to my frustration, because that's the story they wanted to tell. Like, they wanted to tell us that fucking hilarious story. So the premise is this. Once we got to know each other over 2-3 years of me meeting these people, and we're basically best buddies. The thing that used to piss them off was like, listen, bro, I know I'm in a wheelchair, but if there's a nice butt, I look at it. I'm not the fucking, Holy Spirit, I have testicles. And so they really were annoyed at this, the way that society perceived them as complete angels and not having like a darker side.
Okay.
So what we came up with was this hilarious sketch of this guy who's just like really hungry. He's in a wheelchair and he's stuck in the queue of a bank. It's like really long. So then his devil self and his angel self pop onto his shoulder, like old cartoons like they used to do in Tom and Jerry and all of that. And they start having an argument about like how he's going to get to the front of the line. So, but by the time he gets to the front of the line, like he starts off with like a little sob story. He's like, oh, I'm in so much pain. Can someone help me? And like he skips the first one. And then by the time he's at the very front of the line, he's like, listen, can't you see I'm in a fucking wheelchair? Like he just like gets like super entitled about it. Yeah. And then it like turns up and then I think the guard turns up. It turns into a shootout. It goes full Tarantino, this thing. And unfortunately, when the commissioner saw it, she was like, I don't think the public should see this.
Oh, that's a pity.
Yeah, so we shelved it. And that is one of my biggest regrets in recent years. I was going to say not for me, but that sounds so pretentious, because I did enjoy it and I did want people to watch it. But really, like the people that lost out the most were the kids that wrote this thing, and that turned up week on week for writing and rehearsals, and turned up at the shoot and worked with the director and worked with and then to say, we're not gonna, we don't think the public should see this. It's like, well, okay, I know, like you're the commission and you're paying for it. But don't they get to say, And I don't know, maybe they were persuaded that they should regret it. I don't know, but the guys that I talked to all said were a bit annoyed and hurt by that. So anyway, Breaking Limits was crazy good. This wasn't part of so Breaking Limits was the breakdance thing, and then there was like this offshoot thing that I don't know what the name of it.
Fiklimna.
Yeah, that was it. Shit. And then the other one was obviously Hiphop Is Yours. Hiphop Is
Yeah.
Yours is fucking crazy.
How was
crazy
that?
Good. Oh, Lord, man.
How did you even get on board? Was it your idea? Did you initiate it?
How did it start? I know it started. Okay, so started way before that, the idea. So when I was about, I think, 20 or something, and I was still kind of a reckless adolescent, a guy called Karsten Schwierep somehow got in touch with me and said, hey, listen, we're doing a project called Bocca Porti. Yes, it's called. So to help disadvantaged kids in the Cotonera area to express themselves. And we really thought, because, you rap, that it would be good for them to have a couple of sessions with you where you, teach them how to write, rap, perform, and all of that. I was like, yes, amen. So we started out first going to, I think we go to St. James, and then we went to St. Patrick's, which I have quite a history with. I had already a history there in St. Patrick's already, so
You were a coach now at a point there.
Fucking hell, you! Yes. I used to teach kids basketball there.
Yeah.
Yeah, after school. 'Cause it wasn't entirely altruistic. That I wanted, because all I wanted to do as a kid was listen to hip hop and play basketball. As I used to think I'm from the Bronx. You have to get this about me, Tash. And so this was just another opportunity for me to be holding a basketball. So my mom was a social worker at St. Patrick's, and I said, I came up with the brilliant idea of, hey, well, I'll come volunteer, and after school on, let's say, Tuesday and Thursday or whatever, I can teach the guys how to play basketball. And yeah, so that's how it started. And then I started hanging out, and then I got a brother while I was there. So then I got along with one of the kids there, and he wound up becoming my foster brother, Julian. So at age 13, he moved into our house and, didn't leave until we all left the house, basically. So, yeah, Bocca Porti. So I started teaching these kids how to rap. Obviously fell in love with the kids, had the freaking great time with them, went beyond the rap. I used to help them with homework. I remember one time we just took all these old bikes that they had they had like this little garage, and we spent like an afternoon fixing bikes, and we used to sit down and watch wrestling. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I think wrestling is one of the best sources of entertainment that humanity has ever invented. And so I used to watch this with the kids and like do stupid things like jump off their wardrobes, and I'm supposed to be there and being the disciplined one. And then we that project finished, but then years later I kept thinking like, what's a cool thing? And then Malta wanted, that's what happened. And then Malta wanted to put in an application for the V18. They wanted to propose Malta as a capital of culture. But none of the artists ever hung out. Like they wanted to say that Malta is like an inclusive space for artists, and they have migrants and all of this stuff that you need to put on the application in order for Europe to think you know what you're doing. And most artists were not, like, I used to hang out at the Marsa Open Center, like I was like me and Dave Legas, who's black. Probably was the only white guy who used to hang out there, throw concerts there. So they knew, the Arts Council at the time knew this about me. They knew I had done Bocca Porti, and they came to me like, listen, you think you can do like an inclusive kind of project, and we can show it to the Valletaitin people, then they can give us the capital of culture. So I said, yeah, why not? So first started teaching rap, but it didn't really work out with migrants. It's very hard because I had a group from Somalia. Obviously, I don't speak Somali. Somali is a very complicated language. I don't know if you ever try to interface with it. It's not Arabic. It doesn't have Latin roots. It's very, I don't know what the root of it is. So it was very hard for me to even understand the language. Like I was trying to get the language, but that was a hopeless case, especially I only had like 2-3 weeks to do it. And also the way that Somalis see rhythm is not the way we see rhythm. So in the West, it's all 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They do like 7/8 and like all sorts of odd rhythms that generally we in the West associate with complicated like jazz music or progressive rock would be like that, which is not what we're naturally inclined to do. So I had to, one, somehow understand roughly what these kids are saying, and two, like get them to somehow conform to the 4/4 rhythm, because that's all I knew how to produce. And then we came up with a cool song, which wasn't rap. It was Mogadishu in Urkage. Well, escapes me. But anyway, it was like this beautiful lamentation about, again, like a song that never made it anywhere. I'm so terrible with my stuff. And it was a song with a lamentation about Mogadishu, which is the capital city of Somalia, and how it's been destroyed, and where will we ever go back to it? Because these were refugees. They when I managed to communicate with them, and there were some very piercing, tear-jerking, heart-wrenching moments with these guys. But when I, and that's what they wanted to tell me about. Like to them, they felt completely unanchored. They felt like nowhere feels like home, and it's very uneasy, So that project, and then that evolved, and I was like, I'm enjoying this. Like, but I don't think I got kind of like as much as I could out of the exercise. So I then persuaded the Arts Council through they used to have these grants. Like you put in a proposal and you say what you want to do. And anyway, and then I came up with Hiphop Is Yours. And that was hip-hop in prison and hip-hop eventually in secondary schools. And that was so good. That's so good. I mean, that's... they say like the toughest guys have the biggest hearts.
Yeah.
Or like the most they're like it's excruciating pain. Like once you start talking and to see people who would rip your fucking head off, just fold, because you talk to them, and they can't. There's a point in the conversation they come to the realization that they never had a fucking chance. Like it's always going to end up here. Because this parent let them down, because that teacher, instead of helping, it was a crushing influence, and everything about them was just completely chaotic, and drugs were everywhere, and they realize, and they come to the realization, and that destroys them, because like I don't know if have you been to the Maltese prison?
Never.
Bro, it's an ugly fucking place. I have nightmares about that place. I can't imagine what it's like to live in that prison. Now, to be completely fair with the system, and there was a great person there that was running the system. Her name was Joan Battistino, as a person that I deeply admire, by the way. She was she was like such a balanced person. She was very strong and very disciplined, but also very kind. At the same time, like in equal measures, and she knew when she needed to pull out the fist and show you when she needed to show you her heart. So eventually they moved the kids out of Cordine and they moved them to Imtahleb. And that area there, that was actually nice. It was nice. And it was far more livable as a space. There was more sunlight, there was more open spaces. They weren't confined to cells. It was like more of a dormitory set up. But prison is horrible. The cool part about the project was that every time I turned up to the prison in Imtahleb, what would happen was, you get to the part where they ask you to drop your objects, your belongings into the locker room, and then the guard, you hear him says, come in, and as soon as you touch the door, the metal door, the steel door, you feel the door go boom, 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 and then you open it, and every time there's hip hop coming out of the speaker from across the prison. Because I set up a studio for them, so part of the money that I raised through the Arts Council was to set up a studio. I made them self-sufficient, because that's what I believe in. I don't believe in people like giving you shit. I believe in people saying, look, here's the rod, figure it out. And that's what I did. So I set up I set up two things. One was a studio, small studio, which I showed them how to run, and I showed them how to use the software, so they could do it all by themselves. And on the other corner, they had a library of books, and they were like, the only expectation I had from them was like that they read, I don't know, like they had a certain frequency. They had to read like a book and then present it to the group and tell us what the book is about. And so these guys found fucking something to do in prison. And that was really good because they got to be in, this sounds like it belongs to the she word, what I'm about to say, but they got in touch with their feelings, right? Which is not a thing that these people were accustomed to, right? Because there was a lot of pain there. Not just their feelings, but also their intellect, right? And they're being witty, and they're figuring out how to tell a story in rhyme. And maybe some of them were cool gangster stories. And that's something I'm deeply proud of. Deeply proud of, yeah.
Nice. So, Jon, your career in music, writing, producing, eventually it led you into the hosting realm, both with your podcast and with Il-Kazin.
Yeah.
And I want to jump into your podcast first.
Sure.
So you started that at a time where many different podcasts were booming.
Yeah.
So why did you end up going into something like this, and what was the end goal for you when you started out?
For the podcast?
Yeah.
Well, as I said before, so I had a number of goals. I wanted to educate myself. I wanted to do something with cool people. I wanted to remain, exploiting the talents that I had fostered over time. I had a certain level of trust from the public that I thought perhaps if I offer, an editorial lineup of people I think are worth listening to, and I ask them honest questions, that maybe people would be, I thought, marginally interested. I didn't really realize that people were going to be like that interested in what podcasts were, because even though there were a number of podcasts at the time, long form podcasts weren't something that were spectacularly popular. So when we shot our first podcast, it was like 3 hours long. I didn't have like excessively high hopes, for it, but we put it online and it went through the roof. So yeah, I did those are the reasons. I wanted to do something in media, and I thought, it'd be cool if we could. The thing is, we never knew that it was going to be like financially sustainable, for example. It wasn't like we had a financial goal and this is how we're going to make it happen and here's a 3-year business plan. No, I think first 4 episodes we all did for no money. I think. Maybe I'm telling a lie. Hold on. I don't remember exactly. But first 4 episodes I think we made for no money. And then we had like a proof of concept. And then we started like financing this literally 1 episode at a time. This is not sustainable. This is not any way to build something that you can do long term, guys. If you're going to venture into something like this, don't go for 1 episode at a time. And then I think we said, okay, guys, listen, because this is a headache. This is literally like, we have to shoot a podcast on Thursday. So on Monday, I'm calling the sponsors. You want to sponsor another one? You want to sponsor another? And that became very just inefficient.
Okay.
So then we decided, okay, guys, let's try to do 4 episodes at a time. And then there was one particular company to whom I will feel forever indebted. And we sat down with them and listen, guys, we really love what you're doing. But we really, because we sent them like a 4 package deal. And we really don't think like a 4 package deal works for us and I'm thinking they're going to say we want to try 1. And then they go, because how can we tell if it there's synergy over 4 episodes? Can we do a year? Fuck yeah, we can do a year. And obviously we gave them we understood what they wanted to do and saw the vision of their company, and it was great, and we're still great friends, and they just opened our eyes to the potential of how we could do this over the long term. and secure money over a long period of time. So then we only think about editorial and making this thing good and all of those things. So, and at the same time, I got my education because I got to invite some of the best historians, some of the best psychologists, some of the best educators, some of the best writers, artists, and got myself a master class, because I would sit down and I had like, this person's going to be here for as long as they wish to be. And as long as I don't get tired and I stay focused and I'm prepared. In the beginning, I was never prepared, by the way. Before I watched the first 12 episodes, I had no idea what I'm doing. So I used to have like no notes, nothing. Like in the first 12 episodes, just like off the cuff. So tell me about yourself. And I'm just asking questions that are coming to my mind at the time. Then over time, it just got a bit more organized. Yeah. And that's how this thing became what it is today. Yeah.
You even won an award for it in 2021. Would you say that awards for you, whether it was this or anything?
I love Loving Malta. And they've given me some of my best formation. Like I've learned so much from work. I worked for Loving Malta for a year. But I forgot I even won that award. Like, you had to remind me of that. And that's not because it's a Love in Malta award. It's just I forget these things.
In fact, I was going to ask.
I enjoy the moment because I get to, do my little strut. And like, for sure, we had a great night that night. And it gave us a reason to all get together and celebrate. But I forget. I mean, maybe the only awards that kind of are still in my memory are when I won the journalism awards.
Oh, okay.
The music awards were cool.
Maltese Broadcasting and the editorial one, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So some of these awards did validate your work in a certain sense. Would you say so?
Validate my work.
Or were you not looking for that?
Validation, dear therapist. It was. Did I want the mainstream to think I was okay, or that I had something to offer? Yeah, I think I wanted that. Yeah. Look, when you grow up, going to school, and you don't understand shit while you're behind that desk, and every time it's time to sit down for an exam, this is a complete waste of time, and it's quite humiliating to watch all your friends fill in the exam and they seem like they know what they're doing and you have no clue what's going on. And then at the end of the exercise, a few days later, you're going to get the marks and yours is going to be like a 12. John dropped 12. You feel like you're on the margins and you grow kind of a disdain to anything that's kind of mainstream and it's systemic and that is culturally acceptable and the fucking norm. You start hating that shit. So when then you go to the journalism awards and you're not even a fucking journalist and you've been there for like 20 minutes and you win the most awards on the night, you're like, okay, let's get drunk.
Yeah. Would you say that the Jon Mallia Podcast is the best in Malta?
Come on, what kind of questions are these? Of course. Look, I think the best is quite a subjective thing. Is it?
It is, but you can still say yes or no.
Shit, you're good at your job. Well done.
Thank you.
I would have said the exact same fucking thing, to be honest.
You're not getting out of this one. I can say yes or no.
So look, is it the best? Wow, I believe now the politician hands now. I think.
Sucks being on the other side of the table.
I'll be honest. I don't watch much other content. How fucking pretentious that sounds.
It's okay, you're on the other side of the table, you can't say it.
Look, here's what I can tell you about all the other podcasts for me, like my experience with them, is that the other podcasts are all vying for your attention, my audience's attention. So I had to look at what I'm doing and say, okay, listen, what am I about? What's my identity? What am I as a broadcaster? What am I as a presenter? What am I as a thinker? And it really made me dig deep to really understand what I am bringing to the table. And there was no way I was going to suddenly just change my game plan and, start I don't know, doing anything different. But it did make me look at what I'm doing right and do more of that. So be more researched. Ask difficult questions. And if they don't answer it, I ask them again. And if they don't answer it, I ask them again. And those things which I know work and that I enjoy, like when I watch it back, I'm like, I'm really happy I asked that question. I feel like I was really well researched, really well prepared. I do more of that. So I just made me want to define myself more in the context of all that's going on. The bottom line remains, I'm a free market guy. I love competition. I think it brings innovation. I think it brings the best out of us. I think it's great for the producers that we're in this space together and that we're all vying to make the best product. And you know, in the end, who wins? The consumer, the viewer. So I feel like it's a win-win all around. That's how I feel.
And I feel like, Jon, you took those traits that you mentioned, the fact that you became more well-researched, the fact that you got to know yourself more, and brought all of that to Il-Kazin. So why bother to take that to TV?
So here's the Il-Kazin tale. So we have Patreons, and our Patreons are great. I love my Patreons. I feel like they have as much ownership of what I do as much as I do, and Mark does, and Weza does, and my team, and Julian, and Kylie, and Jael, and everyone else. They're part of the community, so I wanted to give them something where we could meet regularly and do what we love to do, which is debate, discuss, hold people to account. So I wanted to create that kind of space where, you know, groups of Patreons could come and watch, participate, ask questions. I mean, sometimes they ask crucifying questions, like worse than me, man, worse. And so I created Il-Kazin. And then I thought, but if we do this, so I wanted to have debates, public debates with a live audience coming in. But I wanted to do it, you know, weekly, or I wanted to do it more than once. You know, it's not worthwhile building a whole structure such to do once or twice. So then I thought, how do I make this viable? So I called Go. I said, listen, hi, Jon Mallia here. I'd like to do a debate show. Interested? Immediately they were on board with the idea. So then we spent must have spent like 18 months back and forth, and I was busy, they were busy, so like sometimes meetings would be like 4 months in between. But I'd like to send my utmost regards to Ryan, Mark, and Alison, who I have a great working relationship with them, and they do have a really cool vision for GoTV. So I'm really happy to be on board, and that they chose us to partner up with for this kind of content. So anyway, all of these elements came together, and voila, Kazin. And Kazin is also pushing me to be like, Kazin is sometimes you have 3 episodes in a row where they're just WrestleMania. You know, it's like the debate is hardcore. 3 weeks in a row. Like by week 3, you're completely exhausted.
In fact, I was going to say, so on the episode, you've called out politicians, you've called out people multiple times.
Yeah.
Was there anyone or some important figure, someone of a level of importance who you really wanted on the show who rejected coming onto it?
Yeah, so Byron Camilleri. So Byron Camilleri, I think it was like episode 5 or whatever of this season. If you recall, there was the fight in Hamrun, where there's those guys, they beat up the cops, and then later we found out the cops were not handling it as professionally as they should have. But does that justify, smacking a cop? So there's all these questions. And there was another couple of things, the issue of migration. So we wanted Byron on the show. I chased him for like a month. The first time I called his PA, it's like, we'd like to have Byron on the show. She's like, this is at the time when there's a crisis, right, in national security apparatus. And I'm like, she's like, he can't make it. I'm like, listen, no, don't worry. It's like any time in October he can come. It's like, no, all October he can't come. I'm like, I haven't even given you a day. You tell me all October. Like, there are these questions that people are asking. And you're telling me he doesn't have 3 hours to sit in a room, or 2 hours, whatever it is, to sit in a room with people that have genuine questions. Do you realize it's our taxes that pay for his wage and perhaps yours? She's like, and she hung up. She's like, okay, I'll call you back. So anyway, then she gave me, then they played a really poor game of like getting out, giving us a day and then moving it and giving it. And then eventually I just did the show with the Speaker of the Opposition, which was unfortunate because that's not what the debate, that's not what it's about. But then, to be fair, because then you have to give due credit where credit is due. People like Owen Bondici came for what was like a highly combated debate. Clifton Grima came for a highly combative debate. Alex Borch came for a highly combative debate. Those three like immediately jump to mind when I think, stressful dialogue. So much fun though. You should come.
Come to watch?
Yeah. Or fight. I don't know.
I'll fight.
I know.
I will.
I know. You're anything like your brother.
Watch first.
Yeah.
Now, is there some sort of inspiration of a figure that you admire, as in before you mentioned Joe Rogan, so potentially, or some show that you wanted to emulate, or was it more of Jon doing what Jon does?
So, just to be clear, guys, when I say fight, I don't mean physical, make love, not war. Actually, the reason I do this to be very not transparent, but to make sure that things don't get taken out of context. The reason I love dialogue is because I hate violence.
Yeah.
And once the dialogue stops, and there's nothing more to discuss, but there's still contention, the next thing that happens is, well, you blow up a journalist, or you shoot someone, or this happens all the time. So I want to keep talking until we find a solution here. So when I say, at Kazin, it's combative, it's motivated. The incentive is, let's resolve this. As difficult as it is, and you can, call me arrogant for asking that question, and I can say, well, it's immoral what you're saying, but let's get to the bottom of it, like that. So as far as shows go that I kind of maybe took some inspiration from, so there's a guy called Jeremy Paxman. So Jeremy Paxman is a very calm British journalist, far calmer than me. I wish I was so calm. He's very zen, but he asks like the most direct questions, and he'll ask the same question 6 times over if he has to. No, you didn't answer. Let me ask again. And so Jeremy Paxman, legend from, I would say, probably like the 80s and the 90s. Then there was a series called Hard Talk. So Hard Talk was, again, a British series in which several different journalists had this kind of disposition. And I think they all used to like train with each other or something like that in their style. So I think those two were mainly the source of inspiration. And then there's a couple of like really obscure old school figures that I'm going to keep to myself.
Okay. You'll gatekeep a couple to yourself.
Yeah. Like a couple of really, like if you look for them, but you have to know how to look for them. Like really good.
Couple of controversial people? Or no?
No, like people that, like from time gone by.
Okay.
Giving lectures on how to like drill people with questions.
Can I have one of them?
Yeah, when we switch this camera off.
Okay, I'll take it. Jon, how would you define success? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's very easy. Look, very easy this for me. So I have, like on my page, many thousands of people that follow my work, and same goes for YouTube and whatever. And I'm really grateful for that. Really grateful. And I'm in a place that is unique and that allows me to have a really great go at life. But there's really the applause of maybe 4, 5, 6 people that I can't live without.
Okay.
Can't live without their applause. I can't live without their admiration.
Who?
My children. I want my children to I want to think of me highly. I want them to, want them to be around me. I want them to think I'm smart enough to be someone that they can come and ask for advice. In some ways, maybe emulate. Although I don't care for them to be in the media or whatever, but to observe the world or to interface with the world in similar ways that I do. My wife, I love making my mother proud because I've just given her such a hard time. One of the best moments of my life was being invited back to my former school, Stella Maris, maybe 2 years ago. And I was asked to give the end of scholastic speech when all the 4 and 5s were graduating. And I walked into the school, and every time I was in the school, I was in trouble. Every time, literally, every time. So now I'm walking into the school. I'm holding my daughter's hand. I'm holding my wife's hand. And there's my mom. And we're like smiling at each other, like a bit awkward and a bit naughty. And then like the headmaster came to me, and it's like I'm getting a second go at this. Like this guy's he's not mad at me. He's not about to tell my mom about something horrible I've done. No, he hands me the program. I'm special guest, Jon Mallia. They walk us to the front. This is like the complete inverse experience I've always had at school. My mom sits next to me. She's having the time of her life. I get up on stage and I make my speech say, hey, listen guys, there's guys here that are like, I saw like the prizes you guys got, and you're incredible. You're incredible. I don't know how you do it. I don't know. Like, I am amazed. And you guys are going to go into the world. You're going to be great developers and accountants. Hopefully not lawyers. Joking. You can be lawyers. Just be good lawyers. And you guys are fine. But I'm sure there are kids that are feeling like shit right now because they didn't get to stand up on the stage. Maybe they failed everything. Maybe they feel like they're born to lose. And maybe there's also parents here that feel like they failed. And now my mom is like, "Whoa, fuck it." And I'm trying to not look. And I say, listen, guys, all you have is each other. Like you have, the person sitting next to you, that adult sitting next to you right now, you might think, more or something, you resent them. But man, when the rubber hits the road, when that shit hits the fan, the only person that is coming to you with a cloth and wiping your face is your mother. And the earlier you fucking learn that, is the quicker you're gonna get on the right path. And maybe both of you don't have the fucking tools to do it, but you will figure it out if every morning you wake up and try to make each other's lives better. And yeah, so that was great moment for me because, as I'm saying, the whole scholastic experience was hell for me. It was chaos. To then be again validated, if we must, was an exceptional experience. So my daughter then started to understand what a menace her father was. Because she's not. So at first he's understanding. So at first he's like, "Why is Nana crying?" And then we had to kind of explain. And then all my teachers started coming up to me like I'm holding my daughter's hands. And then Mr. Gutt, remember the time when you. Nah, just kidding. Mr. Gutt is great. I met some teachers that I really had an affinity with, and I know that they really tried with me, but I was just not that way configured. So yeah, so my daughter got to find out more about who her dad was, and And you know, it was cool. I wanted to bring that for good. So one of the kids there, so they told the kids, you know, Jon Mallia is coming, and they told one of the kids, let's make him a gift. And this kid made me he sketched the most beautiful pair of feet in pencil. So you just, like, the picture is about, like, maybe a time and a half larger than an A4, and it's just 2 bare feet.
Okay.
And it's just one of the feet is lifted, so you can see that they're taking a step. And they're like, this is to remind you of your journey, your walk. What's interesting is that I spent about 4 years of my life where I walked around barefoot. That's another story. So maybe at least once or twice a week, I sit down. It's in my living room. I sit down and I just gaze into that. If you're watching, bro, I gaze into that picture that you guys gave me for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes at a stretch, at least twice a week.
Nice. And on the contrary, Jon, how would you define failure?
Failure is giving up.
And would you say that there was a point where you could define yourself having failed because you gave up? Or were you not quite there?
Look, when Sixth Symphony fell apart, I felt like a huge failure. When Limestone Cowboy fell apart, felt like a huge failure. But now I see things very differently. Now I see it as like, well, you've tried something, didn't work out. Let's try something again. Maybe this works out. And to be honest, like, obviously we still do many things that people don't even know happen, because, like, they go online, they're a bit shit, or they're a bit boring, or they're a bit underwhelming, and then you try to figure out why that happened, and you keep going. Yeah, no, failure is like just getting knocked on your ass and just staying there. That's failure.
And Jon, for my last question, we're giving something back to our audience, where we're asking all of our guests to recommend one book, one podcast, one film, something they really feel...
One of each?
You could.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, one of the best books for practical reasons that anyone could read is, Mark likes this guy, Josh Waitzkin. Josh Waitzkin wrote this book called The Art of Learning. Phenomenal. You want to really turbo speed how fast you learn things? Josh Waitzkin. So Josh Waitzkin is, when he was 9, he became like one of America's foremost young chess players. I think eventually became a world champion, became a grandmaster, like very young. There's a film about him called What Happened to Bobby Fischer, starring Joe Mantegna. Fantastic movie. But then this guy got bored of chess. So this guy, at the age 9, he used to just watch the street hustlers play chess, and he picked up how this works. And soon after, he just became extremely proficient at chess, destroying adults, able to play 6 boards at once, and all of these crazy things. But then he got bored of chess. He started this thing called push hands, became a world champion at push hands, then disappeared. And then I was having a conversation with Mark. And he's like, you should check out this jiu-jitsu guy, Josh Waitzkin. I'm like, what? Like, what did he say? He's like, Josh Waitzkin, yeah, I forgot who he trains with. I'm like, this is the guy? He's like, yeah. It's like, I'm like, bro, that guy used to be a chess world champion, push hands world champion. Now he's a black belt, and like a rated black belt. And so this guy just really knows how to learn things. No, he doesn't just talk it. He goes out into the world and actually does it, and it's really impressive. So Art of Learning is one. Movie, I keep telling people about this movie. No one ever goes to watch it. It's called Glengarry Glen Ross. So it's a movie from the 80s, stars Pacino, Kevin Spacey, Jack Lemmon, a couple of other, like, major, Alec Baldwin. So generally, people know a particular scene if you're in sales, you know a particular scene from this movie, which is the part where Alec Baldwin goes to this real estate office in the middle of the night because they're not selling, and he takes with him a pair of brass balls. Have you ever seen this scene?
No.
Okay, so he walks in with a pair of brass balls, and he makes this whole monologue about the need of having balls to sell, right? So many people in sales know that scene, but that is probably the least exciting part of that movie. So this is a really small movie inside maybe 3, 4, 5, 4 locations: a bar, an office, and a house, and a phone booth. And what's amazing about it is the craftsmanship and the screenplay, right? The way it was written, the dialogue and the interactions. So as a screenwriter, it's phenomenal to see, like, you learn how you can make something really amazing with very little resource outside your thinking. It's by a guy called David Mamet is the writer. The reason it's also fantastic, that movie, it's not merely because it's an obscure film that with some of the best actors of all time, but also it was a turnaround moment for me, one of my turnaround moments. So towards the end of the scene, a guy has been conned into putting down a bunch of money into a real estate deal by Pacino, who is like far cooler and slicker and more persuasive than him and all of that. And I'm watching this with my wife, and I go, and I see this guy's like crushed because how's he going to tell his wife, and he's just so distraught. And I go, miskin, you know. And my wife's like, la, mush miskin. He should have been attentive. She didn't think, so her moral judgment wasn't that Pacino was right. No, she thinks Pacino was doing a terrible, terrible thing. But you shouldn't make yourself prey to that terrible, terrible thing. And that's where I started thinking about the concept between being nice and being good. They are two very different things. Being good is having a moral compass, like the samurai say. Being good is having the ability to wield the sword, but deciding not to wield it. Not being able to wield the sword. Those are two very different things. So that kind of set me on a particular path. So that's book, movie.
And podcast?
Anything about Winston Churchill, I guess. Yeah. I mean, there are these figures in history, Winston Churchill being one of them, that are just perfect. Just like perfect humans. I mean, the guy is like running the British Empire, completely drunk, completely in love with his wife, completely, invested in his relationship with his daughter. At the same time, he's fighting off the Nazis. At the same time, like, the whole parliament is against him, and like, he can't give a shit. All he wants, he wants to just destroy Hitler and pet his bulldog. Amazing. I mean, how, like, so few people will ever be Winston Churchill cool. He had his flaws. Not that he used to drink so much. Like, he was a bit racist. So he had he had like this hierarchy of different ethnic groups. Like, he literally had a list of like who is the better ethnic group, and then like who's worse. Like, there's a classification, but you have to put that into context. And the context is that the Japanese had this list for them, the Chinese had Middle Kingdom for them, the Ottomans, anyone that was not Muslim was like almost not a human. Obviously the Americans had the fucking slave trade going, controversial thing I'm about to say that no one ever wants to say. Even Malta's biggest hero was a bit of a racist, Manuel de Mec, who, by and large, no matter what anyone says, is Malta's most valiant fighter. Was a bit of a racist. Yeah. He used to aspire to, we needed to be more like America. We needed to be more Eurocentric, and he saw ethnic groups that came from the south of us as inferior. But I think the reason for that was that the world at the time didn't know each other. It's not like today, where we get to actually... So the Japanese didn't know us,
Yeah.
so they just assumed we're inferior, right? The Chinese didn't know us. They just assumed there's something wrong with us. What's wrong with their eyes? So what happens is that you make assumptions. And all of these ethnic groups made assumptions about each other, which resulted in horrible ethnic cleansings and all of those things, which are repulsive. But at the time, that's how the world saw itself.
And John, for my final question,
You said that
it's
question
true,
ago.
it's true, it's
She
true.
said it ago.
Because for my very last one, any words of wisdom that you'd like to share to our audience?
Oh, I'm fucking stupid. I don't know. The line that divides good and evil runs through the heart of every human being. That's Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote that when he was writing the Gulag Archipelago, when he was a prisoner of the Soviets. He was a political prisoner, and what he was saying was that, listen, we all have the potential to be good, but we also have the potential to be completely evil. And one must continually make that decision.
Okay. John, what can I say? Thank you so much
Pleasure.
for all of your knowledge and
Pleasure.
for this conversation. It was a blast having you on.
Yeah, it was a
Thank
blast being here. Thank you. Thank you.